This is CBC Vancouver News.
The impending closure of another assisted living facility.
I would lose everything.
And fears from residents they'll end up homeless. Also, 3 years after the start of the pandemic, a legacy of racism that hasn't been forgotten.
We're still here, we're hanging on, but we need help.
Why Chinese Canadians say the justice system isn't doing enough. And window cleaners trapped high in the downtown Vancouver sky.
The mechanism that drives the platform up and down, that scaffolding, just stopped working.
And the dramatic hour-long rescue. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Michelle Ghoussoub. Well, the impending closure of another assisted living facility for people with mental illness in Metro Vancouver has its residents and their families frustrated and afraid. We first told you about the situation at the White Rock facility in early November. Since then, little, if anything, has been done by Fraser Health to find the residents new homes. As Belle Puri reports, with less than 12 weeks to go before the facility shuts down, 9 people still have no idea where they will go next.
The only thing certain for residents of Bona Vista Lodge is their uncertain future.
I'm doing the best I've ever done, so I'm feeling pretty confident and I'm pretty happy, except for we got to move, so.
Leaving White Rock will mean leaving favorite haunts and all that's familiar.
Oh, I would lose everything. All of those things, the privileges that I have now, it would be terrible.
The operators of the privately run assisted living facility blame a lack of funding for not renewing their contract with Fraser Health. They gave notice last June. Since then, 87-year-old Magdalena Coombs' family has been shown only one potentially new place.
It's not a home like Buena Vista. You know, it's more institutional. My mom was there too. When she came back, all she could say is that she's going to die. She's going to die if she goes there.
Today, I'm honored to present Budget 2023.
Then last week, the provincial budget earmarked more than $1 billion for mental health supports, including operating costs. None of it is for Bona Vista.
Well, this is a home that needs that funding. Keep it open. These people need a home. They don't need addiction recovery beds, which is also needed, because they're not going to get better. This is their home. This is their life.
In an email to CBC, Fraser Health says it's working to open 10 beds in a new licensed mental health care facility in Cloverdale, which will open in the coming months. All Bona Vista residents will be offered these new beds first. These beds, it says, are as close to their existing home in White Rock as possible. The opposition says it's unjust to force vulnerable people to move.
We need to find a solution. We should have found that solution months ago. They should not have gone into the Christmas season not knowing where they were going to be. They were going to be displaced.
This was a no-brainer. We have another company that wants to take over the contract to help continue the care for these community members.
Fraser Health isn't interested in considering new operators for Bona Vista.
Unfortunately, we understand that that building is quite old, 100 years old, and the operator has decided that it no longer wishes to provide that service.
Family members are lost for answers.
Why can't they give some money towards the mental health people here? What is the problem? I don't understand.
They're not dealing with the people who have lifelong mental issues as schizophrenia and such. And this is where we're finding the problem. There's no housing for them.
In the last 4 years, including Bona Vista, Fraser Health has closed 60 mental health beds in White Rock, South Surrey. Belle Puri, CBC News, White Rock.
2 window cleaners found themselves in a scary situation this afternoon when they got stuck on the side of the Deloitte building in Vancouver. The pair were on a platform halfway up the building that was not able to move up or down because of mechanical issues. Vancouver Fire and Rescue Services rappelled from the top of the building down to the cleaners and used ropes to lower them to safety. However, the building's Rubik's Cube-like walls made the descent more difficult.
You can see from the layout at the exterior where it's not just a flat surface to it, so it's adding that next layer of complexity, and our hardly trained crews are able to overcome that.
Neither of the window washers were injured. Thousands of people in the eastern part of the Fraser Valley are without transit today until Saturday because of ongoing job action. Drivers and transit workers with QP Local 561 are calling for better pay and working conditions and a pension program from U.S.-based contractor First Transit. Talks between the union and company resume next week, but worker representatives say they are planning a complete shutdown as of March 20th, excluding essential services.
We don't need to work like long hours for 13 hours or 14 hours a day to get paid 8 hours only. So we have a life to spend with the family as well. We don't need to spend more time behind the wheel.
BC Transit says there are at least 13,000 transit riders every weekday on the affected systems. The BC Supreme Court judge has certified a class action lawsuit against a Vancouver private school. Darren Liptrot is one of several former students to attend Vancouver College and St. Thomas More Collegiate and is the lead plaintiff in the lawsuit, which alleges that the Christian brothers running the institutions abused their students. The decision notes that 65 potential class members have identified themselves, alleging they experienced physical or sexual abuse. The Archdiocese of Vancouver, St. Thomas More Collegiate, and Vancouver College have not yet responded to a CBC request for comment. A BC-based division of the RCMP is now the subject of a federal investigation. The probe by the watchdog will determine whether the special unit's operations may have violated protesters' charter rights. The Community Industry Response Group was created to prepare for Indigenous and environmental activism targeting the Trans Mountain expansion and the Coastal GasLink pipelines. It's been involved in high-profile confrontations, including in 2021 at Fairy Creek and on Wet'suwet'en land, dismantling blockades. The unit is already facing a proposed class action lawsuit alleging the RCMP used unjustifiably large exclusion zone policy to prevent public access to the area.
The public is permitted to go to the injunction area in order to hike, for instance, in order to document or film, in order to engage in lawful protest. And so while the exclusion zones are permitted narrowly for the purpose of conducting arrests, they're not permitted, as the claim alleges, to be used to block public access entirely.
The review will be completed by the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission. It will determine whether the RCMP's tactics are consistent with the charter legislation on the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. The RCMP is investigating two organizations in Quebec that it suspects are working on behalf of the Chinese government. Both have served as resource centers for Chinese and Asian communities. An RCMP statement suggests the centers could be putting undue pressure on Chinese Canadians. CBC has previously reported on similar so-called Chinese police stations in Ontario and BC. The Nelson Public Library has canceled a drag storytime event scheduled for this weekend after staff and storytellers were threatened and intimidated online. This was the first time the public space has tried to hold a drag storytime. The library says the event was meant to model inclusiveness and a love of reading, and that they have notified police. Berkeley Vox was among those slated to appear. He says he's disappointed, but understands why the library made that choice.
It's really important to me as a father, as a member of this community, and as somebody who was born and raised in this town. I think that kids, families, the huge queer community that exists here, everybody deserves a right to feel a part of something, a space to do so.
This isn't the first time an event like this has been cancelled in BC. Last summer, a family-friendly drag show at a Victoria cafe was cancelled after the cafe owner said staff were inundated with homophobic and transphobic phone calls. Well, following this week's provincial report into hate crimes, advocates say the justice system is failing BC's Chinese community. The report found a particular spike in anti-Asian hate, with incidents rising almost 500% in 2020. Yasmin Gandam spoke with some who have experienced hate firsthand.
So the garden, it's a cultural gem. It's been around for 37 years. As Lorraine Lowe walks through the Dr. Sun Yat-sen Garden in Chinatown, she is disappointed by the vandalism and damage done to a sacred space.
It's very disheartening to see that our cultural pillars are being targeted for whatever reason.
Lowe herself has been targeted by anti-Asian hate over the past few years, being told to go back to China. She worries the historical significance of the Chinatown neighborhood is being lost.
You know, we started a community, and now we've, survived through the resiliency of our culture, and we're still here, we're hanging on, but, we need help.
This lawyer has also been targeted, having racist slurs and verbal insults spewed at him. He says it needs to be easier for people to report hate incidents in the province.
We need to have a massive push to redefine what does it actually mean, expand the scope. The reality is it's just not working anymore. This definition's been around for over 20 years. It doesn't reflect society today in 2023, and we have to make a change now.
CBC reached out to BC government and were told there are no updates on the reporting system at this time. The report found of the 20,000 incidents that occurred from 2015 and 2021, less than a quarter were reported to police.
They're hurting. They don't care anymore. And so it's on us as citizens to make the society better for everyone else.
Joey Wong is the son of King Wong, founder of the Dollar Food Group and a respected member of the Chinese community. He says the incidents of hate have not just affected individual residents, but businesses as well.
We've been around quite a long time, from the heydays of all the bustling street to now, where it's kind of slowed down a bit. But we're hoping that we can revitalize it to the point where we can bring it back up to a middle ground level, at least, that all the businesses in China can survive that way with.
But there is some optimism in the community, with the new municipal government prioritizing the needs of Chinatown.
Things are actually moving, the needle's moving, and we've got a very supportive municipal government who's responsible for uplifting Chinatown now, and we're looking forward to seeing what's ahead.
The community hopes the stark findings bring a call to action. Yasmin Gantam, CBC News, Vancouver.
Spring break and Easter long weekend are on the way, and that means more people will be relying on BC Ferries, all while the service deals with operational challenges. BC Ferries has been grappling with staffing challenges as well as mechanical and weather issues. Officials say they are working on increasing their staffing levels as we head into spring and have strategies in place like cross-training employees to make sure they can backfill positions.
Well, we do have extra sailings scheduled for the spring break period, and that's about 3 weeks because the school districts vary within the Lower Mainland as well as on Vancouver Island. So we've got extra sailings between Tsawwassen and Swartz Bay.
Currently, the ferry service is launching a recruitment campaign after severe staff shortages forced sailing cancellations. BC Ferries is reporting a 52% increase in turnover among ferry employees over the last 2 years. Well, 2 municipalities in the Lower Mainland have seen so much dysfunction at the council table that they're asking the province for help. Harrison Hot Springs and Lions Bay are the latest in a long line of small towns that have big political drama. Justin McRoy reports on why it seems to happen so often.
Harrison Hot Springs. It has a resort, a surprising obsession with Bigfoot, and lately a very dysfunctional city council.
The meeting is now closed to the public? No, it isn't. You're what? You're going to call your CMP? The meeting is closed, sir.
That was a meeting on February 21st, which was not attended by the mayor. There was another council meeting later that night with the mayor. It went worse.
Councillor Fascio, you have been asked to remove yourself from this meeting. Councillor Vidal, you have been asked to lead this meeting.
Councillors are having private meetings without the mayor, senior staff have retired or are on leave, and the new mayor struggled to run public meetings.
It's an embarrassment for the village to have 4 of our elected officials acting in this manner.
Things have gotten so bad that Harrison Hot Springs has asked the province for assistance, less than 4 months into their 4-year term. But they're not the only small town in the Lower Mainland that can't seem to run their own affairs.
Council requests the assistance of the Ministry of Municipal Affairs to provide a municipal advisor to the village of Lions Bay.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Lions Bay has also used the phone a friend option, and it also happened after an election where a new mayor was elected and most of the senior staff quit or were forced out. Now, the ministry won't say how the meetings are going, and nobody from either village on council is willing to speak on the record. So it's hard to say who is in the right or wrong. But what's happening here are classic challenges with small town politics. First, a new mayor wants to change things, but that's easier said than done.
Even people who run for mayor have a misconception about how much power they potentially have.
Mayors in BC only have one vote, and other than sharing meetings, no real extra powers. So how do they get their agenda passed?
They only have that power of kind of persuasion as opposed to, clear direction.
And if they can't persuade? Well, in provincial or federal politics, it's set up to have a government in opposition. And if the leader of the government no longer has the votes, there are mechanisms for them to resign or to have an early election to resolve things. But in local politics, it's set up for everyone to work together collegially. And if a mayor doesn't have the votes to do things, they all just have to sit there for the rest of their term. It's part of the reason why some have called on the province to create an ethics commissioner with powers to resolve situations like this. But the province isn't interested.
Well, we certainly do, as a province, place a very high level of autonomy and responsibility on local governments. We're very reluctant to wade into matters of local government.
Which on one hand is very reasonable, but here is a chart. It shows in the last 5 years the number of Lower Mainland mayors that got into feuds with councillors that involved lawsuits, non-confidence motions, or people being removed from council. And here are the number of them that won re-election. Feuding councils may make for good drama, but it usually results in short-term employment. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
I think there's a lot of pride in the fact that they have electric vehicles and they're the first to have them.
An all-electric delivery fleet for Canada Post right here in BC. We'll tell you which city will have these green trucks whizzing around next. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Newfoundland and Labrador is often seen as a world leader in trying to save whales tangled in ocean debris, including fishing gear and communication lines. The province's whale disentanglement experts are now working to pass those skills on to others.
What's happening here today? We're having a whale disentanglement tool workshop with people from across Canada, input from worldwide on different tools that are used for disentangling whales. We are taking the tools that people brought and using and testing them for their cutting strength on different types of ropes. This is our first time doing this. So what we're doing is looking at the gear that we already use and some prototypes that have never been used in the water and finding ways to cut gear off the whale easier, maybe at a long distance easier, maybe if they're embedded ropes easier. It's just to make it a safer process for the disentangler and a quick process for disentangling the whale.
The Whale Research Group has tried rescuing whales from the ice, from fishing nets, up to 150 whales in years while the cod fishery was active.
This was a problem where a whale was in someone's cod trap and someone got in touch with John at the university and because he had been doing some things with whales and they asked him if he would come and try to disentangle this whale. And so he went and they worked a long time to try to get the whale out, in fact several weeks, and then they finally were able to do it. And they found that their best methods was to get close and their best tools were filleting knives at the time.
We started the Campobello Whale Rescue Team in 2002.
And how much were you inspired by what was happening here with the Whale Rescue Group here in Newfoundland?
A lot. They were the first ones that started. They started this, so yeah, we learned a lot from them over the years, and it's always good to have the networking and talk with other people, just to see if they've seen problems, because everyone's different. Every whale entanglement's different, so it's nice to be able to ask people questions and pick on their experience. All of us getting together and sharing ideas and things like that. It's great to watch the performance of the tools in the flume tank here underwater to see how they work. And yeah, we've got a lot of good ideas, and it's great that we're a group because someone comes up with an idea and then someone else will add a little bit something to it. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of good things come out of this workshop, and hopefully it's something that'll continue on, every year, every couple of years to keep improving.
Canada Post's first all-electric delivery fleet is launching right here in BC. Nanaimo is getting 24 electric vehicles as the mail delivery service aims to reach net zero emissions by 2050. We got an up-close look at the new fleet.
It's really exciting that we can launch here at Nanaimo. It's one of the first depots, it's actually the first depot at Canada Post to have an entire fleet, corporate fleet, that is made up of electric vehicles. Not just about the vehicles, but it's about making sure that we have the right infrastructure to actually operate them and support them. So Nanaimo, we've selected Nanaimo as one of the first depots to receive electric vehicles is because, first of all, it's located in the beautiful province of British Columbia, where we know we have clean energy. Nanaimo as well is a facility that we have vehicles that drive less than 50 kilometers on a route. So that means that these vehicles that we have, there's sufficient range to actually do those routes maybe 2 times over. So we know that even in the coldest, harshest conditions, there's going to be enough battery range to last those routes. Yeah, so Nanaimo has 14, but there's a total of 100 that we're deploying in this first phase. So we actually created this new branding for all of our green vehicles, and we went with this color, this teal color, just to indicate that they are unique, that they are sustainable vehicles. So it's very much, it stands out. So when you see them on the street, you know that they are green vehicles. I wouldn't call it a pilot. I would say it's step 1 in our plans. If we launch these vehicles, we're launching the rest of the 100 in Quebec, and then we're also focusing on our long-term strategy. So we actually are looking at other sites of where we can go, again, using the same criteria. The staff have been on board, so they love the fact that we have electric vehicles. I think there's a lot of pride in the fact that they have electric vehicles and they're the first to have them.
Here's a live shot of the Port of Vancouver. Your full forecast is coming up next.
"400 kilometers of trunk sewer lines, 33 pump stations and wastewater treatment plants make up the sewage system in Greater Vancouver. Much of it is over 60 years old. It's been poorly maintained, especially in the last 10 years, and now the piper must be paid.
And so our main concern now is that before we move into our next major expansion program, which we're looking at in the starting the next year, that we put what we have in good order before we move into that what is a 7-year $1 billion expansion program.
Every major part of the system needs upgrading. It will take money and manpower. This is the Iona Island wastewater treatment plant. It serves Vancouver, and there are 4 others taking care of the rest of the GVRD. The turbines that run this plant were built in 1948. They've been running almost non-stop since that time, and they need to be replaced.
There's a lot of metal fatigue on them. They've got hundreds of thousands of hours. They're a real high-cost maintenance item. We should be looking at the replacement of these engines within the next 5 or 6 years, or sooner if possible.
Tenney says other parts of the plant must also be overhauled soon.
The screens on this are 29 years old. The average life of any mechanical equipment is usually expected to last 20 years. So
there's 9 years over it.
That's right.
The GVRD will add an additional 60 workers to the entire system over the next few months. Representative Mayor Beth Johnson of Delta, who speaks for the politicians, says it's money well spent.
The old story is, you've got to take care of what you already have. Otherwise, you end up spending a lot more money in the future. I think that we're doing a lot of catch-up right now, and it's going to cost a lot of money, but I think it's critical for the whole system in order for it to work for those 50 or 100 years into the future that we're hoping that it'll last.
Flusher crews are also hoping for improvements in the system. When gravel builds up in a line now, a worker has to physically go down and clear it. This is dangerous, and it takes time.
It's very time consuming, but it's all we've got right now. We're hoping to convince people that we need a combination truck with a vacuum truck, which eliminates the guys going down, which is a big safety thing, and it also cuts down on time to get the gravel out of the sewer.
Sewage spills were rare a few years ago, but there were 70 incidents of major backups and flooding since November of 1988. The demand on the system will continue to grow as long as the population goes up. Bob Gillingham, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 30th, join Angela Starrett at the Alumni UBC webinar on Indigenous youth, nurturing the next generation. Hear from 3 Indigenous speakers who mentor Indigenous youth to share knowledge in their communities and beyond. Register at alumni.ubc.ca and never miss an episode of your favorite CBC drama or comedy with the free CBC Gem app. Check it out at gem.cbc.ca.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
John Sauter is here to give us our weather. We've been very spoilt on the South Coast with 3 days of sunshine, but that's coming to an end.
It's a bit of a soggy forecast as we get closer to the weekend, thanks to this low pressure system, which will start to move on shore tonight into Friday morning, bringing lots of rain and snow south of the border, but some of that through southern BC as well. Now, with this, windy conditions, some of the highways to the east of Vancouver will be dealing with not just snow, but some wind, and right through the day on Friday and into Saturday. And then as we do get into the weekend, what will be showers in Vancouver on Friday will change to more of periods of steady rain as we head into the weekend. Some snow in higher elevations and some rain in coastal regions in the lower mainland, and right through into Sunday morning as well. A couple of weather alerts, dust advisories in effect for the Vernon area and Golden, and some of the rain and snow may bring an end to those advisories as we head through the weekend. Snowfall amounts over the next 48 hours. Not too impressive, really. We're looking at moderate snowfall here. 5 centimeters Abbotsford, 5 in Kelowna, more like 9, or 7, that is, in Fernie, and 9 in Grand Forks. And as for rainfall, we will see some accumulating rain here over the next 48 hours. It really intensifies on Saturday, but I do think there will be periods when you can get outside and do some bike riding, hiking, that sort of thing. So tonight's forecast includes showers for Vancouver, Victoria, Lytton, and Soyuz. A little bit drier back to the east for tonight anyway. And then as we head to the north, pretty dry conditions, but cold. Minus 17 with some snow in Fort Nelson. We'll see a little bit more snow tomorrow, but high pressure over the northern part of the province, keeping conditions pretty dry over the next 48 hours. Some more showers changing to rain across the southern part of the province, but out into Cranbrook, it is all snow with a daytime high of -3. Now, 7-day forecast for Vancouver looking pretty consistent. Lots of rain here, very consistent overnight temperatures, and very consistent daytime temperatures for the next 7 days.
Thanks, John. And that is your late news for Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For news anytime, visit our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Good night.